Welcome to the Corner Office. We are back with a new guest, new episode, and a new perspective into the reality behind the reality in corporate India. My next guest and I share the same name. And let's find out what else do we have in common. I'm pleased to welcome the very dynamic Sumit Gera, CEO of India Business Parks at CapitaLand.
Hi, Sumit.
Hi Sumit, welcome to the Corner Office.
Thanks for having me here. Pleasure.
Sumit, your expertise in smart investments and building spaces that empower both local and global enterprises is truly remarkable. You have been instrumental in shaping India business parks into future-ready, sustainable ecosystems. Before we discuss your incredible career trajectory, let's hit rewind and uncover some defining moments from your early years. What was your childhood like? How did those early school years at DPS, I believe, impact where you are today?
Very interesting question, Sumit. I grew up in a business family. My grandfather came from Pakistan, started from scratch. And for that kind of family to be progressive and tell me that, tum jaake pehle padho, then you decide whether you want to join the business or go the professional route. I think on hindsight, really changed the trajectory of where I am sitting here with you in this place today, right? I went to many schools, 3 schools, and changed schools 5 times. Early childhood, I went to Shimla for a year, then studied in a small school in Panipat. When I moved to DPS Noida, it was a sea change. So just meeting different people, living in different places, I think it changes you in profound ways. It breaks your ideas of us versus them. It breaks your ideas of where you come from and how I'm different. Everyone's different in their own ways. So that really shaped my early childhood, I think.
Yeah. So you and I think both are product of small cities, if I can say. You from Panipat, me from Jalandhar. I have a belief that probably people from small cities end up grinding a bit more. Do you agree?
I think 100%. Because when I was in Panipat, a school called Bal Vikas, and still my alma mater, moved to DPS Noida because at one point my principal convinced my mother to move me to a bigger, better school in whatever her idea of that was. And I was a topper in Bal Vikas school when I left. And when I went to DPS, I found myself completely lost. I was in a big crowd and I was a nobody. Finding my feet took a long time, and it was very humbling that one day you're here and then suddenly you're a nobody. So yeah, I think what you're saying makes sense.
You have an illustrious educational background. Sri Ram College of Commerce, then Columbia, then National University of Singapore. You must be a role model for all the kids in the neighborhood. Give us a perspective on how different is it for education in India versus abroad.
India versus abroad. So yeah, I've spent time, I've studied in Delhi, Singapore, and for a brief period in New York. The clear difference in, anyone can probably think of this, the infrastructure, the kind of diverse faculty, the diverse student cohort that you have. Very, very different. The facilities, definitely, when you're in a government-run institution in India, you don't expect the same that you might expect in Singapore or in New York. However, what you see is the number of people from India who are successful, despite all these, is amazing.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say it's probably because of this lack of some of these facilities that there is this hunger to do something more, right? And so I would not say one is better than the other, but it definitely seems a lot more glamorous, if that's the word I can use.
Your career spans across high-profile roles in private equity and real estate. What led you to specialize in this field?
Mostly chance. I never really had a long-term dream, and I didn't know what framework to put this in. And then this Australian comic that I see every now and then called Tim Minchin.
Right.
He put it in nice words saying, dedication to short-term goals. So I never really in school knew which college, where I'm going to go, right? Just what is the next step? What do we do next from here? And I think that's where I was on exchange from NUS to Columbia Business School. An opportunity showed up. And why I said chance is they were probably looking for someone in New York who had the words Singapore, India, real estate, private equity on their resume. And I had all these at least, about once, because I'd done one assignment when I was a research analyst at McKinsey. I'd done one assignment because in 2005 or five, where FDI laws in real estate were opening up that time, right? So it was an unknown client who wanted to land bank in India. I still don't know who the client was, but because I was on that study, I'd written that on my CV. Just a few impactful things that I'd done, and that was one of them, right? Then I was studying in Singapore. Of course, India was all over my CV also.
Right.
So I think that probably led to the shortlisting of my CV to a company that was then doing that. So
right.
A lot of chance.
So was there a pivotal movement or a piece of advice that made you pursue real estate?
Yeah. I think I would say sequence of events, right? And the sequence is only visible on hindsight.
Right.
You're not making the sequence as you go along. You can look back and say what happened, right? So that study at McKinsey, then I applied for a scholarship. I got the private equity award in NUS.
Oh, wow.
Which was not just the name, but they also sponsored part of my exchange program. Then why this is relevant was the lady who gave the award was a senior partner at Permira. And when I got the job offer from Partners Group, I went to her and said, look, I don't know this firm, right? Can you tell me? And she said, oh, you don't know Partners Group? I play golf or go on a summer vacation with one of their female leaders every year. And I think they're a phenomenal bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that removed all doubts in my mind that, this is the firm that I want to join. And when I joined, and because real estate laws were changing in India, it just seemed like an opportunistic thing to do and say, okay, we'll just, go along this flow.
Yeah, got it. See, your academic background imply that you must be a very focused individual from an early age. What are some habits or routines that you have followed to remain productive and focused?
If you ask my wife, she will say I make too many lists. But I think it's just staying focused on what you need to do requires a little bit of, patience and a little bit. It's a little bit like building your muscle, right? You go to the gym every day and you build muscle. So if you know you want to be focused, you have to just remind yourself every day that what you need to do. So I make lists and I take time out. And when I'm on flights, it's a quiet time for 15-20 minutes. I'll just think about what to do now. What will I do when I get off this flight? So I think that it's a conscious effort to be disciplined. I'm not disciplined otherwise.
So you're very dedicated, like you mentioned, towards your short-term goals. And how do you look at then creating a bit more longer-term path?
Yeah, sure. So having a short-term goal just means just focus on what you're doing now. Obviously, the long-term goal is there. However, sometimes what happens is if the short-term starts to look better in a certain different direction, then I don't want to be constrained by that. This is, for example, if you're going, it's about investment decisions, right? You don't want to be too vested in the long-term aim, say if you want to invest in one city or another city.
Okay, now that we have got a glimpse of Sumit the student, let's get to know your CEO avatar. As a CEO of India Business Parks at CapitaLand, how do you envision the future of commercial real estate in India?
Very simple. The way we see it, and I'm sure you're seeing this in your business also, India commercial real estate is probably going to be the largest and most vibrant real estate market on the planet. It's purely driven by the talent pool available in India and the number of companies and the scale at which these companies are coming to India, right? And this will have a sort of a twin-pronged impact, I believe. One is on placemaking, the other is on capital markets.
Yeah.
And placemaking in the sense that all the demand that's coming, people want nicer offices. They want to feel good about where they are, right? And rightfully so, and that's how it should be. And what that does is, I look back on one of my exchange programs. I met a friend from Liechtenstein, and we were just having a casual conversation. I was in my early 20s, and I said, it's nice that we have offices in one place and parks, and you can go out for greenery and everything. And he said, that sounds terrible to me because for us, the cities are the parks.
Yeah.
It stuck with me. And today, I think we are getting to a point where a lot of us are making sure that our parks are very vibrant, they're sustainable, and the demand is coming. And that leads to a vicious cycle that if you don't do these things, people will not want to show up in your offices. So I think that placemaking is an irreversible and an amazing trend that's happening sort of on the ground.
Yeah.
On the capital market side, as the stock of real estate keeps increasing, you'll see already REIT regulation has come in, more private funds are coming in, but increasingly you'll see more and more institutional nature of capital markets taking on larger role in how to run these portfolios. So I think both good things will happen as more and more size increases in commercial real estate.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Rather, in one of the earlier episodes, we had Ramesh, who also mentioned about the importance of premiumization and hotelization with respect to the real estate.
Yeah.
And institutionalization, even for mid-size assets, is a one kind of trend we are seeing as well.
Yeah.
In terms of Indian real estate market, if we compare it to broader Asian markets with respect to growth, investments, and regulation, how do you see it? How do you compare it?
I think just the sheer growth and demand is unparalleled, I think, in any other part of the world today. Just the scale and the pace at which it's growing, right? So from a growth and investment perspective, there is no comparison to India today. When it comes to regulation, I think because states have their own ways of working and everyone's still figuring out how to make it more and more easy, I think there's a lot of progress, but I think still some way to go to meet, if you were to consider Hong Kong or Singapore or other countries as sort of the benchmark, I think we still have some way to go to get there.
Yeah.
Would you agree? I mean,
see, I would agree. So when I look at India and Asia, at least one regular theme I see is the Asian markets are very, very institutional, whereas the Indian markets, it's very non-institutional right now, and we are on a path to do institutionalization. That's why the quality of assets is very different. Where I see a similarity is probably in terms of return to office.
Yeah.
Return to office, at least Asian markets have been more blessed that return to office has happened in various avatars. But I see US and Europe, the struggle in return to office.
Yeah.
How do you look at US and Europe office markets now? Where do you think they are headed?
I believe, and this is purely anecdotal, the fact that people are not coming back to office might be the reason we are seeing people move their offices here.
Right.
It's unfortunate for maybe someone sitting in the West, but clearly India is a big beneficiary of that trend today.
Yeah. So with the rise of GCCs, India is basically the office of the world, is what we are seeing. At least in our portfolio, what we are seeing is an interesting trend. Earlier, the very large companies and corporates used to set up their GCCs in India. Now I see that from mid-level corporates setting up their GCCs, and these are across the spectrum. I feel sometimes amazed the kind of processes they are moving to India. These could be a large cocoa player to a social media company to a fitness company. So these are the kind of GCCs which I see them incubating out of our portfolio.
Yeah. GCCs is a generic term, right? It really means a lot of different types of things that were not being done before are being done in India, which is really amazing for the country.
Right. So taking from that, what are the kind of challenges do you see in the overall real estate investment sector in India, and what are your suggestions to tackle them?
I think challenges in terms of investment is probably more around, we would all expect or hope that regulations are more easy. But I mean, that's a cliche anyway.
Right.
What I would hope for is, we are building islands of green and sustainable buildings. I really wish that we collaborate with the state governments, and the state governments really want that their states do well, and which is a very healthy competition. That we develop better cities rather than just developing one building, but the infrastructure in the middle is chalk and cheese.
Right.
So that's my hope, and that's the opportunity that I feel will develop as we go along, and more demand comes to get a larger share of the pie. The states will have to roll out incentives or ideas that make cities compete with each other. So may the best city and the best state win.
Right. Now, as a business leader, I am assuming one of the key challenges for you is how to balance short-term profitability and long-term sustainability in real estate development. What are your strategies of creating this healthy balance?
I think It's actually the reverse. Today, sustainability is profit making.
Yeah.
So we love it because
Right.
the investors want sustainability, our tenants want sustainability, and that makes our job easier because we want sustainability, right? Most of the ideas that we implement today make money or save
Mhm.
expenses or save water, electricity, and so on and so forth. Of course, there is these one-off ideas where you invest today and you're scratching your head saying, "How do I get this immediate return?" I think my personal challenge to myself is to solve these situations and go as fast as possible because it just means we are more efficient, we are more green, and we are more desirable by tenants and investors alike.
Yeah. So I love this fact that occupiers and tenants are rewarding the sustainability initiatives, and that's driving more and more developers towards embracing them.
Yeah. So I'll just add an anecdote. In my previous life, while talking to several pension funds, I had a light bulb moment
Yeah.
where they said there's a commercial reason for them to go green. Pension funds, insurance companies, they have long-term liabilities, 40 years, 50 years liabilities to pay for people's pensions or insurance claims. Now, when they run their models and they see on a scientific basis X degrees of warming, what that does to their other investments, and they see real depletion in value.
Right.
Now, to avoid that depletion, they must invest in sustainability. So to protect their investment value, right? So it's
Right.
purely commercial and it's brilliant because then they will never let go of it. It's not somebody else telling them to go green. It's themselves who are hurting in the long run. So they want to make sure that all of us are doing the right thing from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Switching gears, let's talk about artificial intelligence and how it's impacting our business operations. Can you share how CapitaLand is integrating AI in day-to-day business operations?
Yeah. So as a company, we are very AI curious.
Right.
The NVIDIA CEO, famously said, AI is not going to take your job. It's the person who's using AI that's going to take your job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I, we both use laptops, and we take it as a given that we need laptops and internet in our business operations, right? Imagine, a parallel company, office, CapitaLand, operating without laptops, without
Right.
internet. You can't imagine that company would be able to compete with what you and I are doing today, right? Similar, I think a big leap from here to AI, whether it's reading and summarizing texts, whether it's distilling, providing analytics and insights. I think we are very curious. We've started to test across some divisions, and I think our focus will sharpen as we go along.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing it in many of your areas as well?
I think you've used a very good phrase, AI curious. I think we all are in a similar stage. We are also being very curious about doing it and trying to, take small leaps. I personally use a bit more of AI tools, trying to embrace myself and do it. Let's see where the whole thing goes.
Yeah.
And speaking of the future, what advice would you give young professionals aspiring to enter private equity and real estate investment?
Yeah. I think I would say two things. First, learn as much as you can about as much as you can. And this goes probably for any career path. But if you were to specify for private equity or real estate, what I would say is if you're doing real estate investments, you need to learn what construction means. You need to learn what leasing, property management, why your investor is asking you the reason or the question they're asking. If you understand the whole ecosystem, you're able to be much better at your particular job, whether it's investment or portfolio management or anything, right? So I think learning as much as you can about as much as you can is my first advice. Two, as we grow in organizations, knowledge becomes secondary. The primary thing is, are you able to communicate well? Are you able to analyze? Are you able to work with people? Are you a team player? And your attitude in general becomes very, very important. And even more so in a high pressure environment where you're doing investments or private equity, etc. So definitely the discipline, the analytics, communication, all these things also become very, very important.
Yeah. So after that inspiring discussions, we'll switch gears to a light-hearted rapid fire round. Let's see your funny and witty side. Your go-to comfort food.
Healthy Asian food or homemade palak paneer?
Oh, nice. Are you a early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
How do you unwind after work?
Spending time with my family.
Most inspiring business leader or entrepreneur?
Bill Gates or Azim Premji because of their social work.
Oh, nice. If you could switch lives with one person for a day, who would it be?
If I have to do it in these times, Donald Trump.
Oh, that's great. And what's one thing you think about when you hear the word success?
It's relative.
That's very deep. Yeah. If you could time travel, which era would you visit?
Go back to college days when I was dating my wife.
Ah, nice. If you were stranded on a deserted island, what three things would you want to have with you?
Music, good food, and off late, a yoga mat.
Cool. What is your greatest strength? Okay. And while we are at it, greatest weakness.
My greatest strength, I would say, is my resolve to do the right thing. And my weakness, rasgullas.
Great. You had been great with the rapid fire round, Sumit. Thank you so much for joining us, Sumit. It's been a pleasure having you on the show and getting great insights from you.
Thank you for having me over, Sumit. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on another exciting episode of the Corner Office. I'm your host, Sumit Lakhani, signing off. Stay tuned, more awesome insights are headed your way soon.